Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Inspirate Business, the show that's here to inspire you, to empower you, and to enlighten you. And as you know, each week we cover someone very special, someone who is doing amazing work in their community, and more than ever is somebody that I have the privilege of meeting about 2 years ago, Brother Raheem Nkumane. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Inspirate Business. You on the hot couch and here to share your inspiration and aspiration. I know I have been so inspired by you. Now I think we've met in the last 2 or 3 years, and the work that you're doing, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to sharing some advice and so on, inshallah.
Yes. Yeah. So a little story. I actually met Brother Raheem, Sheikh Raheem, through a show actually on another channel a couple of years back. Mm-hmm. And I watched this young African man and I said, wow, here he's talking about motivation, he's talking business, and guess what? He's also talking deen. He's talking the Islamic ethos and principles, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And I was like, wow, we need to have him on Islamic TV. And we hosted a show on socioeconomic development at the time, at the height of COVID, and Raheem shared a lot of insights. And a journey has been created where, you know, when they say that you have a soul connection, a ruh connection, somehow it's like a brother from another mother. I think that's the connection that Raheem and I have. So Raheem, tell us a little bit about, you know, where did you grow up? Where did it all start?
Okay, so thank you so much to you and the viewers. And I was born in Winterveld. Right. Winterveld is north of Pretoria. It's a township, one of the most disadvantaged townships in South Africa.
It was part of the old Bophuthatswana.
The old Bophuthatswana, yes.
Right. Okay.
So I was born in Winterveld, and I grew up in Winterveld. I went to a primary school called Refalotse Primary School, and most of my life I've spent in Winterveld. And then after a few years, I think I was in middle school. That's when I started moving around, where I went to go stay in Lodium, where I did my Islamic studies, and I went to go stay, you know, in different parts of the world as well, where I just wanted to complete my studies and came back home and
So you're a young, 31 years old right now, right?
Yeah.
When I first met you, I think you were like 29 or some couple of years back. So 31, yes. and but with wisdom beyond your years. Yes. And I think that comes out so strongly. But again, what comes out also very, very strongly is your Islamic ethos.
Yes.
And that was reared in the Darul Uloom in Pretoria, right?
Yes. So the Islamic ethos actually started at home.
Okay.
You see, I'm coming from a family where my mother and my father, their work was basically to, you know, be preaching Islam.
And they were not born Muslim?
No.
Mom and dad?
No, they were not born Muslim.
So just tell us a little bit. I mean, there's an interesting story. Mom?
Yeah. Mom was born in Venda.
All right.
The current Polokwane. And
same place where our president comes from.
Yes. And then she's from the Lemba tribe, the ones that say the Black Jews.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was a nurse, and she was with the Anglican Church.
Okay.
Now the Anglican Church at that time, what they used to do is they used to have missionaries. My grandmother was a missionary for the Anglican, and then my mother became a missionary and a nurse for the Anglicans. Then at that time, the Anglican Church used to send out their missionaries to go and study comparative religion. So my mother, usually when you finish as a nurse, you go and do your intern in Baragwana and others. So she was in Baragwana while she was corresponding in the university. And then she was doing that comparative course. And then she came across Islam. And she decided then, because she had an opportunity to actually go to England and be but she just said, you know what, this is where I stop. This is something that resonates with me. While she was in that process, my father on the other end was a musician.
Wow.
He used to be playing a bass guitar in Gallo.
Is it?
Yes, from Soweto. My father is from Soweto.
With Gallo Records.
Yeah, with Gallo Records that time.
Yeah.
So he used to play the bass guitar. They had groups, they used to travel. So now there was Dula Brand.
Yes, Abdullah Ibrahim.
The late Abdullah Ibrahim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him Jannah, inshallah. Now, when my father tells me that every time Dula Ibrahim was different, when they all go to parties and they go to drink, but Dula Ibrahim never used to come with them, Now, at that time, my father, first and foremost, he's militant in approach. So he approached Dula Ibrahim and said to him, do you think you are better than us, or what's your story? Every time when you have programs, and now and then you take this carpet of yours, you go behind there, I don't know what you do, like every day you do this, routinely every day. What is with this thing? Dula Ibrahim said, no, I'm Muslim. He says, oh, Muslim. So this is your religion. He said, okay, so it doesn't allow you to drink, fornicate, all these things. He says, no, doesn't allow. So, okay. My father said, I'll follow you for 1 year. I'll follow you. Just to see this life. I just want to live like you and see if it works out for me. Now, my father, while he was in that process of following, meaning when he goes to make salah, he used to make salah with him, and every time when they were together. So he would just do what he does. Ramadan, he would fast and do all of that. At that time, he only fasted for 1 Ramadan. Then, when my father went back and researched, he actually found out that my grandfather, when he came from KZN to the mines here in Gauteng, he actually met some of the brothers who were coming from Malawi and also those who were working at the mines that time. Yes. Actually, my grandfather also took Shahada at that time. Now he hears the story from my grandfather's friends. No. Actually, you're not even far away because the uncles were telling him in Tembisa and Soweto that no, even your father was also, Then my father was like, oh, okay. So, okay. Then during that time, you remember they used to go and perform in hospitals,
Yes.
I don't know if today they still do it, but that time they used to perform in hospitals. So they play guitars for the sick just to calm them down. So my father went there to play in Baragwana. That's where my mother was.
That's
waiting.
where he met his wife. Eh?
Now, when they met there, now they the whole and then now my mother started saying, no, you know what, I'm on a journey here. I'm on a journey. I'm from the Anglican and I'm now migrating to Islam.
Wow.
And I'm considering it because I've already started reading books. I've already started doing this, Then my father was like,
I'm on the same
journey.
Wow. Alhamdulillah.
So that short-circuited the process of my father as well, holistically.
But it just tells you that Allah always has this grandiose plan. Yes. We plan, but Allah is the greatest of planners. And just, think of these isolated stories on their own respective journeys in totally different domains.
Yes.
One in a missionary as a nurse, the other as a musician.
Yes.
But Allah will put the hearts together.
Alhamdulillah.
And out of that comes this beautiful man.
Alhamdulillah.
So you guys are one of 3, right?
Yeah, I'm one of
siblings,
3.
Right?
Yeah, so I had my late brother Qasim.
Okay.
And then I have my sister Ruqayya, and then I'm the last one.
And a nice combination. So you from this Zulu warrior lineage, and then you have this Venda lineage as well. So a beautiful blend, right?
Yes.
A typical, it's actually unification of our country. If you take our two, our current president and the previous president, it's a nice combination, right?
Yes.
And I guess representative of, and also interesting, your wife is not South African, right? She's of Arab descent.
Yes.
She's from Abu Dhabi.
Yes,
And then
descended
lived in
from Abu Dhabi in Kenya. Yes.
Kenya.
Yeah.
So a real
So I have-
representative of the United Nations and Pan-Africanism, right?
Yeah, and from the Al Jabri, which is the family of Rasulullah.
Of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Yeah, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, so
Your children are real now representations of the Pan-African, lineage.
Yeah, the Pan-African lineage, and also probably maybe the first Zulu Sayyids, maybe.
It's true. MashaAllah.
Yes,
Alhamdulillah. So,
Alhamdulillah.
okay, let's get a little bit. So you grow up there, you get the Darul Uloom studying,
Yeah.
and then you also did Islamic studies
Yes.
in Doha.
Yeah, Fanar Institute, yes, though.
All right.
So
okay.
I did correspondently. So most of my studies was basically correspondence. So
Right.
where I started my corresponding journey after my Hifdul Quran. After I finished my Hifdul Quran in 2006, from 2007, I just used to do business. And then fund myself through school, fund myself through university, fund myself. I was
So you were an entrepreneur, trader since
from primary school. From primary school. So for me,
it was the
main thing
hustler
was
vibe.
the vibes.
Yes.
I always liked the trading, because also I grew up in a family the way I never had my parents never used to go out in the morning and go to work. My father always told me that here we create our work. In this home, we create our work. So also that played a very major role on me, because I was not having any ambitions of employment or anything.
So you had to be self-reliant. You
Yes.
had to look after yourself.
Yes.
And through that, traded, which is such a blessing.
Yes.
I mean, spoken of so strongly in the Quran as well.
Yes.
That is something that we should be engaging in.
Yes.
Is trading.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى.
Yes.
He has made business halal and usually haram. Now, what I liked about it is that for me, it was more about, I need to take care of myself. There's this thing of indota. In my culture,
yes.
a man has to stand up for himself. You have to do for self. You have to, So I had that growing up.
Which is an Islamic principle.
Yes.
I mean, it's an injunction in the Quran.
Yeah.
Man, you look after the woman.
Yes.
That's your role.
Yes. It's the whole aspect of life that you rather look after yourself.
Yes.
So I started in primary school, the trading. I enjoyed it from grade 3, grade 4.
Wow.
Grade 4.
What a lesson.
Yes.
That for youngsters watching.
Yes.
And to say that, to be self-reliant.
Yes.
And to make it yourself.
Yes.
And to look after yourself. So you're not dependent on your parents or anybody else.
You look after yourself.
And Allah will open ways for you.
Definitely He will. And then how it helps you is that as you do things yourself, you get to have an early learning.
Yes.
An early learning curve. You learn things earlier. You make mistakes earlier. So you're able to amend and adjust and.
And that's where I see this now, wisdom beyond your years, because you started, at age, in grade 3? You must have been 7 or 8 years old. And that's where you're trading and hustling. And how did you do this?
I remember in grade 3, was it grade 3? If I'm not mistaken, grade 4, but somewhere between grade 3 and 4. I was a student in Refalot's primary school in Winterfell. So the school was down the road from my house. So I always liked the fact of selling things. I don't know why, but I just liked it. So from young, then I asked for capital from my father. I told my father that, from my savings, I had a kitty.
Yes.
So from the kitty, I was raised like that, that every time when you have money, you use 50% of it, and then the 50% you put in a kitty. So I asked my father for permission for my kitty. I said, that kitty of mine, I don't want to open it in December. That was my financial year at that time. I said, I don't want to open it in December. I want to open it now and go buy a few packets of crisp and sweets. He says, what you want to do? I said, no, I want to buy a few packets of sweets and then I want to go and sell. And you must tell me, how does it work? He says, no, okay, you put up a margin and all of that. So my father gave me the first lesson there. I was like, okay, fine. Then I had a problem. I had a weakness. And my weakness was I never had that confidence at the time to go and sell to people. But I had people around. I had my friends around that I knew, okay, this one here is famous in school. This one here
the influences.
is Majaivan, dances in school and all of that. I said, okay, fine. So I had about 3 friends that time. So the 3 friends, I gave them stock. Then I said, guys, you'll sell, and then we split the commission on 50-50. So I used to get into trouble every time because sometimes they will sell during class time. You know, the one, especially Fridays, you know, it's crunch time.
Yes.
They need to make sure they get rid of the crisp and all of this. So I used to get into trouble whenever they take them into the office. The principal used to say, they said, no, it's, that time they used to call me Sheikh, by the way. Yeah, in school.
At that age?
Yeah. They used to call me Sheikh. That age I've already memorized Barazanji, you know, the lineage of the Prophet.
Yes,
right? Yes, Barazanji. Yes. I've already memorized. The first thing I memorized was Barazanji, the whole Barazanji I used to. So I used to go out and recite in Mauluds and all of that. Yes, during that time. Because our community at that time, it was predominantly the Qadriya Malawian community. Yes, so I used to go out and read in Mauluds. I used to go out and read in what they call Sadaqa. And so from there on, my journey started there. And then even at the point where I was taken to Darulum to go and study, I still continued. I still had people who would now it has grown now, the business. I had people who go and sell vegetables and fruits and all of that for me in town while I was sitting in Darulum. And I used to make sure that if the school trip comes, I take care of myself. If this comes, I take. So that's how I learned that, you know what, independent. And then I had a very big breakthrough when I was 19, alhamdulillah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that breakthrough. What a journey. What a journey. We've already come to the end of this first segment.
Yeah.
What an amazing journey. Here is somebody, Brother Raheem, at the age of 31, sharing his wisdom beyond his years with a mum that was a Christian missionary, a father that was a musician working with dollar brand Abdullah Ibrahim, watches this man pray with this mat behind the corners and asks, what is this? And I'd like to follow this. They meet together at a hospital, Baragwana Hospital. Allah puts them together, and the offspring of which is whom we sitting with. This beautiful man sitting on this on our hot couch, sharing his wisdom beyond his years. And this very powerful principle of trading, business trading, and being self-reliant. What a powerful message for us in that. Immediately after the break, we'll explore further this breakthrough that Raheem is talking about at the age of 19. Catch you on the other side. Welcome back to Inspirate Business, where we're here to inspire you, to empower you, and to enlighten you. And boy, have we been enlightened by this beautiful man, Raheem, Sheikh Raheem Abdul Rahim Nkumane, sharing his journey with us in terms of just making an impact, you know, coming out of one of the poorest areas in South Africa, actually. It's a very interesting story. I know when I came to your center, the Winterveld Juma Center, this word universality comes out very strongly. I think the word that you use there, I might get the wrong pronunciation. Yes, I'm not going to even try and pronounce it, but my daughter will teach me this later. But it means universal principle, right? Universality
basically is the name of Allah,
right?
Is the name of God. But historically, our ancestors used to call him Umvelingang, the first to be there, the first to appear, the originator of creation. You know, the one who was there before time and the one who will be there after time. You know, so we had that term, Umvelingang.
Yes.
Yeah, the one who was there, who appeared first, the one who was there before anything, the one who's there. You know? Yeah.
This is our creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And everything that if you ever attend, and I really encourage the viewers to actually go and visit the center, because it's a unique center. This principle that Raheem has been talking about around self-reliance exudes there. But that center was started by your mom originally in a little home where it was open, right, to everybody.
Yeah.
And also, I want you to just link that to where you said this breakthrough at the age of 19. So how is this linked?
So when I finished my Quran in 2006, so 2007, I went back home, right? Tried to get a job. I got a job for 2 weeks at the embassy of Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Right? So it was not my thing, you know. I never. And then I went back. I went to go help my mother because that's the time she was starting to get sick. May Allah grant her Jannah, inshallah.
Ameen. Ya Rabb.
So whenever I was at home, in the morning, I would work with my father outside, fixing cars. Okay? And then I would have a few people out there selling vegetables. Okay? We call it italakis. You know, in Pretoria, there where you see people are busy. It's another one pushing a trolley, maize mill, this and that. So I had people there, and I also had local people there that were selling for some of the things. So I was, you know, I was a mover.
Yeah, operator.
of the time.
Yes.
In that area. So around 2:30, I would go to class to go teach Quran to the children.
At your mom's, at
home.
Yes.
I grew up in a community center. My whole life, I lived in a community center. There is not even a single day that I remember that we had what you call a family meal. Or no, there was always everyone there.
And this is anybody, right?
Anybody.
Not I think the one principle that you mentioned to me, which is very important, is that your mom's vision around the community center was not for Muslims only. No. It was for the community.
It was for the community because at the time when she came, you know, there were certain reasons why my mother and father moved to Bophuthatswana, and it was political. So my father was very active ANC comrade.
Right.
You know.
So he had to go underground.
He had to go underground, and many times they would go to Bophuthatswana, and you know. So my father was very active in the ANC, so he's the one who used to, you know, work very hard for making sure he gives people umkhabul so that we fight the system of the time, you know. And then as a Muslim also, you come from a background where you fight for justice. In Allah ya'mur bil adl.
Yes.
You fight for the adl, for justice.
For the justice,
you know,
yes.
You know? And my mother and father moved to Bophuthatswana. When they reached there, my mother saw the condition of the community. And then she started teaching under a tree. Yeah. She used to teach children, feed them, and then also all those comrades were going to exile from our community. Their children used to be left at my house. To be fair, that all of these things, the whole community center was in my house. I grew up in a community center. Sometimes you find dishing out at night. You will find that there will be a lot of plates. You have seen that I think in some social media spaces they show like when it's December, when families visit. Now for me, it was every day. We used to share nothing less than 20 plates a day.
Every night?
In my house, yes.
And with minimal resources?
With minimal resources. Sometimes it's the last, what we have eaten, it will be the last maize meal or the last rice or whatever it is. But my mother always told me something. He says, if you can feed one stomach, you can always feed more than one. And sometimes people would come at the door and say, there's nothing at home. She would go to the family and you'll find we have maize meal this size. And she'll actually take half, put in a plastic and give and say, go cook for the children, they must eat. So this is the type of home I grew up in.
But these are prophetic principles that your mother exuded.
Yes.
I mean, these stories that come to mind is the story of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam when he fed and then Allah just gave him more to feed more. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with minimal resources, it was that community upliftment, community empowerment.
Yes.
So you grew up with this.
I grew up in that. My father, on the other hand, what he used to do, he used to skill the young people in the community, you know, with fixing cars, you know. And then after they fix cars, and then you'll go and set them up somewhere. You know, when I say set them up in that scale, set them up as workshop somewhere, you know, you start becoming busy here and then you pay him back his money, then like that. So my father was my inspiration to go into business to support Deen, for an example. You know, my father was an inspiration to say, okay, so you can be a businessman and still support the cause of Allah and still support the community. So I was really motivated by my parents. This is first and foremost.
And this comes out very, very strongly. I mean, if you visit, again, I encourage everybody, I'm repeating it, but I encourage everybody to go and visit the center.
Yeah.
It's a unique model. For me, what makes this model so powerful is that it's built on sustainability.
Yes.
It's built on self-reliance. It's not handouts from anybody. Of course, if anybody wants to, you can. But the idea is that it's a center, holistic center, which has a masjid.
Yes.
It's hufaz that are being taught every day.
Yes.
there's even non-Muslim kids that get dropped off there because it's a safe haven
Yes.
for people.
Yes.
Then there's a medical center that you've created
Yes.
now, a private clinic,
Yes.
right? Because there's a lack of healthcare services in our townships.
Yes.
And I mean, I've even been there where kids have come there and there's music lessons that are provided, non-Muslim kids that are provided
Traditional,
there,
yes.
traditional, because it's at least there's an avenue for some sort of personal development for kids, child development. And on top of it, there's entrepreneurial opportunities created where there's stores, spaza stores and whatever that are paying you rental and so on.
Yeah. So now growing up with that model, coming to what you are saying, growing up in that model, I saw, yes, it's a model, but I can somehow advance the course. Because why? With my background now recently, because remember that after I finished my school with HI-GCSE with Cambridge,
right,
I was fortunate to have an internship at the security research firm. So my research, investment banking knowledge taught me numbers, actuals, this, that. So I was able to have a model that will be a high social impact institution, holistically, right? So what we did was that I said, okay, I grew up with this model. So we identified land somewhere. Then in the process, it took us 5 years, by the way. It took us 5 years to acquire the land.
And this land, very interestingly, you said was an area that was probably one of the worst areas in terms of crime. You even lost friends.
I lost friends on that land.
Yes, they
got
were
shot.
They were killed, right?
Yes, and then some of my family members also were
murdered,
sexually abused on that same site.
God.
So it's a very, it was a dumping site, and then everybody used to go there, and the people who were on drugs and all of that.
You turned darkness into light.
Yes,
Allah says this in the Quran as well, isn't it?
Yes.
I can turn dark into light, right?
So what we did, we put the first foundation. You see, the methodology of Rasulullah always stands. First and foremost, you establish the house of Allah. So we established the house of Allah. That's number one. And then the house of Allah, we started praying there before there were windows and the roof. There was nothing there. We started praying. Because why? We grew up with that thing of saying, you know what, there's never the right time, there's never a budget, there's never anything right. You just start, Allah will complete. If the intention is right, you start, Allah will complete. Even if you want to do a business or anything, have the right intention, do research on it. You know what? Just Bismillah, go ahead. Don't calculate too much. People, the problem is we calculate what if. There's no what if. Tawakkal ala Allah, you rely on Allah, you move. This is the way of the Sahaba when they went out to the Battle of Badr. They didn't go, they said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Sufficient for us is Allah. So whatever activity you do, you start first by relying on Allah, and then with a good intention, you push. So we started with the masjid portion. After the masjid portion, we were already doing the madrasa. So we started with the masjid portion. After the masjid portion, we said we're going to make a model here. So collectively with the team. So we said, okay, we want to make a model. Then we did a skill center. In the skill center, we've got computer training, we've got some life skills, we've got entrepreneurship, we've got all of that. Then we moved on and say, okay, now Hifdul Quran facility. So we have boys that are staying there, that are doing Hifz. So far, we've graduated 18. I was the first Hafid in the community. Now we have 18. Alhamdulillah. So after that, we said, okay, fine. Hifdul Quran Center is there. We're graduating. MashaAllah, the system is going. Now we build the shops. Now with the shops, we have alliances and partnerships, right? With business schools and so on and so forth, whereby we can have like a handheld mentorship program, for young people who want to pursue their path in business, because we need it. The small business of today is the corporate of tomorrow.
Of course.
And then we're going to need it for employment. So every time when we encourage the boys and the young girls in the center, we say that your business of today, it might look small to you, but we will need it tomorrow because it has to in-house all these children who are now going to school, going for matric, going to study to be accountants, lawyers, and engineers. That is going to be an institution that will in-house them. So Alhamdulillah, so far for the past 3 years, we have trained about 6,000 youth.
Allahu Akbar.
Now, for me, it's not about you doing work. And for me, it's about calculations, it's numbers, it's actuals. how many people you can impact. So it's a social entity, high social impact institution. How many people you can impact. Then from there you calculate vice versa the population. Then you can clearly say that 1% of the population is educated here. 2% of the population of that area is fed from here. So you can have numbers. When you have numbers, then you can clearly plan the process of how you want to do community development. Because I believe in a numbers like community development approach, whereby you must have the numbers of exactly what it is that you are going to be doing.
Wow. Sheikh Raheem has been sharing this community development model.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just airy-fairy community development model. It's based on scientific research.
Yes.
It's based on numbers, and this is where his rearing comes in. It's based on strong ethos. But most importantly, and I think this is the point of departure with a lot of, I think, what our business schools teach us, which is very, very important, the numbers and so on. But I think the point of departure from what is taught to us from an Islamic ethos, and that is that you first have faith, Allah tawakkul you talked about, that this is what I'm going to do. And then Allah will open the way. Yes, tie your camel. Yes, go and do your numbers. Go and do all of that. But have that faith and go and do.
Yes.
What we end up doing in the business school model is a lot around analysis, paralysis, which many times blocks us from what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little bit more about it, or a lot more about it after the break. And hope to see you immediately after the break. Welcome back to Inspirate Business, where we are being intrigued, inspired, empowered, and enlightened by my dear brother, Sheikh Abdul Raheem Nkumane. What an amazing story he's taken us through from the days of growing up in this very poverty-stricken area, Winterveld, creating now a community center, a holistic community center, based on a model of self-reliance, based off scientific modeling around how to develop people. They've already empowered at least 6,000 people and continue. Youth, yes. Right? And not only Muslim. That's the beauty of it. It's a strong Islamic ethos, a masjid, Hafidhul Quran, but it's for the community.
Yes.
And that's what comes out so strongly. So, Raheem, where to from here, right? You've got the center. You quite which you're very humble about, and I'm going to touch a little bit on it. We are, of course, on Inspirate Business, right? You quite an entrepreneur in your own right. Involved in quite a number of businesses, and also very influential on the continent, on the African continent. And I think this comes from your rearing this Zulu male lineage, paternal lineage. You said the Venda maternal lineage, and then your wife, of course, coming from the Arab world, and then also from East Africa. So you're very much a representation of the Pan-African Africanism concept, and you head up, I believe, the Pan-African Youth Parliament.
The Pan-African Business Forum.
Business Forum. All right. So tell us a little bit about your business foray and this Pan-African Business Forum.
So 2 years ago, I was appointed to be the Pan-African Business Forum Youth President for the continent. So Pan-African Business Forum was there. You can check it out on YouTube and everywhere. Where every year we host presidents across the continent to address different economic policy issues.
Is this linked to the African Union?
It is linked to the African Union, but it's a forum. It's a business forum.
Right.
So you had the Pan-African Parliament, but you have a business forum.
Right.
So it was started by some presidents as well in Africa for certain reasons. And one of the reasons was that, the business let me say this, the business play field is not even in the continent. And I like what recently I was in Tanzania when I was with the former president. Of Tanzania.
Yes.
There's one very interesting statement that was mentioned by Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. He said that you cannot put a heavyweight and a lightweight in the same ring and expect them to compete.
Of course.
What happens is saying, we cannot bring corporations into the continent and then the local guy must compete. So what must happen is policy must be able to protect the weak until they are strong enough to compete. So that's our duty. Our duty is to make sure that we encourage, ministers and other across the continent to make sure that their policies are favorable for in my particular platform and department. I deal with youth in business. So it's about how do we get policy to protect the weak until they are strong enough to compete.
So you nurture these young business entrepreneurs.
Upcoming business. But our main focus and concentration is only on the mainstream businesses. I'm talking your mining, your energy, the mainstream businesses. So how do we get the youth into that space? And because remember, the youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow. And if the youth of today have to inherit a country that has a lot of debt, a country that doesn't have an even playground for business, a country that has an environment that is not conducive for a young man to make it up to a certain level, we have a problem. Because we are going to be left with this continent. I mean, it's a fact. And when the youth are left with this continent, we need to make sure that there must be some sort of baton that will, move us forward. So that's my duty.
And something that's very powerful. I think it was Bill Gates who came into the continent. And if there's one thing he said was Africa's greatest asset was our youth.
Yes.
And this latent talent amongst our youth that needs to be nurtured, needs to be untapped. And this creative force that needs to be unleashed.
Yes.
Because through that, you'll have, firstly, if you take our youth, they're so much more empathetic.
Yes.
They're so much more in tuned compared to even my generation.
Yes.
All right, which is we came from a more polarized world.
Yes.
Whereas the youth now is talking about more egalitarianism, equality, these principles, these ethos that were taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ, they can take these principles and bring it into this world that we live in. And that's the work that you're doing.
Yes.
Using business as the key driver.
Yes. I've always been an advocate in my life. I was a da'i. I always advocated for goodness. Even my friends, if you meet some of my very close friends, they will tell you that whenever they see me, they're either going to take a child to school, pay some fees, That's how
I force for good.
I always try as much as I can to use my space for the greater good of humanity. So I found myself in this space of a Pan-African Business Forum. And then, I've already met about four presidents in the continent.
I know recently you were with the Central African Republic president.
Professor Taudera.
Yes.
I've met Professor Taudera, the Zimbabwean. I've met a couple of presidents through this. And my narrative is one, that how do we encourage youth to come into the business space?
No. I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Right? People watching and the world over, right?
Yes.
Have a very negative narrative around the continent.
Yeah.
They still say, but Africa will never rise because it's corrupt and so on. I have always had a different view. I think as a kid, I remember somebody telling me, I relate the story quite a bit, but somebody said to me that before the end of the world, Africa will be returned as a superpower, because it was a superpower.
Yeah.
We take, I know you talk, and he's one of your mentors as well, an icon was Mansa Musa, which
Mansa
we talk.
Musa,
so, we spoke about how he, in his time, eradicated poverty.
Yes.
Using Islamic economic system.
Yes.
So,
Umar bin Abdulaziz,
right,
when he sent his governor in Africa to come and give zakat, there was no one qualifying to take zakat.
Mm.
So zakat had to be hanged on trees
Yes.
during the time of Umar bin Abdulaziz in Africa.
Mm.
So Islam has always worked its way in Africa.
Yes. And so this narrative that people talk about is a fallacy.
It's a fallacy. You know, people have to understand that in sociology also, in civilization, if you study civilization, sociology, I read a lot of civilization, I read a lot about civilization, sociology, biographies and all of that. I just want to find out. But you will find that there's always a pattern. In every age, in every time of our society, of our century, there's always a pattern. And if you look at the pattern, if you really can do a proper holistic look of the world and where it's going and what's going on now and all of that, you will find that now is Africa's turn. It's Africa's turn now. How is it Africa's turn? It's because everybody else had their chance. They have no room for growth. That's the honest issue. Why do we have many countries interested to come and set up shop in Africa?
This is where you're going to get your biggest return on investment.
Exactly.
Right?
Because Africa is untouched. The resources we have here, on the DRC only, the DRC only. The DRC is the world's most richest nation.
Yes.
Underground.
It's true.
Yeah.
They say what I heard, they said per square kilometer.
Yes.
It has the richest minerals in the world.
Yes.
But now here's the conundrum. Sadly, it's regarded as the poorest country in the world.
Yes.
Right? By economic standards,
Yes.
right? And this is what I'm saying, is that how do you transform this rich wealth? Because it's all taken from here and it's in other parts of the world. I mean, you look at Europe has been built on Africa's wealth.
Most of the countries that now we are praising today, and some of us even go all the way to go and work there. And the wealth is coming from here. Now, coming to what you are saying, that many people are saying, no, it's the richest yet the poorest. Yes, it's like that. Because why? International policy. It's frustrating our development and progress. If you look at it from a holistic perspective, why don't we shift aid into investment? Those are some of the questions.
Because it's in the interest of those to continue Africa being an aid recipient.
You see?
Yes.
Now, why don't we shift aid into investment? That's one of our arguments, that we need to shift aid into investment. One. Two, the illicit financial flows that happen. Three, the loaning terms, when our countries in Africa are given loans. That you know, if you read the terms of those loans, it's not that.
I mean, I read something recently that one of the French colonies, ex-French colonies, I can't recall which one, up to today, still pays a reparation fee, not a reparation fee, but a like sort of a loan return to France. Yes. It's one of the ex-colonies.
Now, let me also give you another point. There are some former colonies of certain countries that still print their money outside Africa. So that is a whole new topic. Now, in business terms, now we're talking in business now. In business, we are saying that let Africa be dealt with as equals, not as former subjects. Now, in business also, we find that when you go to finance houses, hedge funds, and all of that, and look for some sort of investment for your operations, especially in the mining space, which I'm,
you're also actively involved
in, whether it's the mining space, whether it's a fintech space, whatever, you will find that when you immediately enter there and you start talking, they still view you as a subject. That's the thing. The mindset hasn't changed. It's our people.
Exactly.
You see? So that's why there are many things that are keeping Africa, and it's also planned for Africa to be where it is. You know. So what I'm saying is that the youth, the one that I'm leading now, I don't want to say much, but the youth that now we are tasked to lead in the continent, we shall do a renegotiation of everything, because remember, Middle East, all these other countries had similar problems.
Yes.
But how did they get out? Is because they negotiated a good deal. So we also need to find a way, the youth in particular, to renegotiate this entire process. We appreciate what the elders have done for us, But it's now our time that we make sure that we must be in the top 500 businesses of the world.
Of course.
Inventions that are happening in Africa. We all know that once invention happens in Africa, the person is taken away. Those are some of the things that are our challenges in the country. Our skills are leaking.
The IP that's just taken away.
Yeah,
yes.
the talent and everything is just being, taken away. So this is my duty in the continent to make sure that we influence governments to have policies that are favorable for youth to enter the mainstream space of business. That's our duty.
And what a mission it is to fulfill.
Yes.
It's almost an ordainment,
yes.
I sense. When I look at your life that you just shared with us, starting off as a youngster, hustling, with the rearing of your mother, talking about community upliftment, and now taking those same very principles that you worked in Winterveld as a grade 3 student, now taking it onto a Pan-African level.
Yes.
And it's the same principles.
Yes.
It's just on scale.
Yes.
And can you just imagine the movement that can be created through this year?
Yes.
Because it's then beyond you, right?
Yes.
It's you just an agent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using to make an impact on this beautiful continent.
Yes.
So on that note, we've come to the end of this section, and let's now explore after the break Raheem's view, okay, in terms of your center, its growth, the more practical elements of how the projects that we can undertake on the continent.
Yes.
You talked of some of the mainstream projects.
Yes.
Those that are watching
yes.
would be intrigued, I think, to get involved.
Yes.
Whether there are those that want to make an impact, that want to invest. There are youngsters that want to get involved on projects that they can tap into an ecosystem. This will be intriguing discussions after the break. Welcome back to Inspirate Business. Can you believe it? We've already come to the last segment with Sheikh Abdul Raheem Nkumane, Hafizul Quran, beautiful Islamic ethos he shares with us. So knowledgeable in the Quran and in Islam, and yet so actively involved in the secular world. And this is something that's a very beautiful lesson for us. Is this... And I think we need to encourage a lot of our youngsters as well to get this balance between your spirituality,
yes.
your Islamic ethos, but yet be very pragmatic in the world.
Yeah.
Make an impact. Isn't that what our Prophet ﷺ did?
Yes.
Isn't that what all our Sahaba did? And the great leaders in the Islamic world did? When once upon a time, the Muslim world was controlling the world. It was where you had the sciences created by our Muslims. You had businesses flourish. We had controlling the economy. And we're on this beautiful continent with all its riches. And here is a gentleman that comes out of poverty, but never allows that to break him down. He is... And what's very important as well, admits his weaknesses. As a youngster, he says, I wasn't a confident person. So I used other people that were more sort of extroverts, and that's how I operated. And today, alhamdulillah, is the head of the Pan-African Business Youth Forum and doing amazing work. So let's explore that, right? Because I want to get to some, and we've got a few minutes left of the show, some practical opportunities for those watching.
Yes.
There could be somebody that's an experienced, successful businessman that wants to get involved in projects, maybe expanding. It could be a youngster that's got an idea that wants to get into mainstream business. Could be somebody that once you just get into this, from a policy perspective, or somebody that's studied and wants to impact, how do we practically get involved?
So I first and foremost, I believe everyone can make a difference. It doesn't matter whether you have the resources or not, but everyone can make a difference. When I was younger, somebody once told me that there is no such thing that someone cannot make a difference. Because even if you yourself cannot make a difference, but your space somewhere, somehow, can somehow make a difference. In the beginning, I remember I used to be the facilitator of development before we even got involved directly. So I used to facilitate. We have a child here, we have this there. Okay, you need to go to school. My friend, no, let's take out something, let's see what you can do. Can you help this child? This is what you do. We do this all the time. So everyone can be involved in impacting someone's life. Now, coming back to what we have done, Alhamdulillah, with the help of Allah, with my friends, my colleagues, and my associate, and my very good circle of people, we have come together and said, let us create a model that will be impacting society, a high social impact institution, sustainably so. So we've created the model. It has the clinic inside there, the warehouse, skill center, all of that. Now, why we did that model? We did that model because we wanted results. It's like a production line. It's a conveyor belt. So what we do, you take the child, you put the child into the computer training class. After you put the child into a computer training class, you take him through entrepreneurship with a business school. After entrepreneurship with a business school, you go and facilitate funding for them to start businesses. And through the 3 years, we have managed to raise 3 million. That went towards the community. Today, I'm talking to you. In the community, there's some butcheries, bakeries, nails and what, barber shops. There's small businesses that are there that are employing, car washes and all of them. They're employing each other. So that model was a practice. Now, taking that and making sure that each township has that incubation center where it coordinates empowerment, development, and it gives hope to the society. So everyone can participate. Trust me, everyone can participate. In this life, everyone can make a difference.
And this is the model that you can replicate across the continent.
Yes, across the continent, we can replicate. I'm talking to you now, alhamdulillah. We had, through people that came and saw, many have offered me title deeds. I'm sitting with 6 title deeds across the country.
To replicate
Muslims
these systems.
And non-Muslims. And they are saying in that model, include the masjid as it is. You understand? So it's more about what can you practically demonstrate. I've had ministers come through to the center. I've given presentation to MECs and all. So it's a center that I think that if we can have a couple of them, it might contribute. If the centers like that empower 1, 2, or 3 million youth, that 1, 2, 3 million youth in future, that's generations.
And importantly, from there comes out doctors, comes out nurses, professionals.
Yes.
Hell, you know what? A future president of the country can come out.
I'm talking to you now already. We do have a one medical doctor. We have a dietitian. We have an aeronautical engineer. We have an accountant now who's becoming a chartered accountant. We have social workers. We have psychologists. We have teachers. We have nurses from the center.
And all with a very strong, because of the Islamic ethos,
yes,
it's actually, you have this strong moral compass.
Yes.
So around which what we say is lacking in leadership today, this ethics, the honesty, integrity, because all that comes, and I think that also exudes very strongly from you, is that, a lot of people get involved in business, but then is it ethical business? Is it, are you doing good? And you speak of this projects for good. And all of this is around projects for good, right? It's honest, hard work, and going through the process of failing and then learning.
Yes.
And
for an example, many people enter business for different reasons. Some enter business to make statements. Some enter business because they want the shiny stuff. Some enter business because they want to empower others. And most of the time, those who enter business for passion and empowering others, they are the ones that Allah puts barakah on them. Go and ask anyone. Alhamdulillah, I was fortunate to sit with a couple of dollar,
Billionaires,
yeah,
yes.
dollar billionaires. So all of them, one thing they say is because I love doing what I'm doing, and I love the fact that it creates employment, it feeds families.
The money is not the driver.
It's never the driver.
It's the measurement for success.
It's never the driver.
Yes.
We are the Muslims. We are told that rizq is from Allah. Allah yarzuqu man yasha. Allah gives rizq to whoever. So what is our duty? Man jadda wajada. He who strives will achieve. So we just strive, and we rely on Allah for results. You cannot ask, you rely on Allah for. And then Ali ibn Abi Talib said something. He said, where the intention is strong, the body never gets weak. Hazrat Rumi rahmatullahi alayhi, what he said? He said, as you walk the way, the path appears. So it's all about starting, being consistent, and also applying the discipline. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best model for business. Abdurrahman bin Auf, Umar bin al-Khattab, we had Mansa Musa here. We had a lot of business. We had our Chinese, what you call him, Lee, Mr. Lee, the one who used to control all the ships.
Yes.
So we had a lot of, where does all that come from? Is the book of Mu'amalat. The Islamic economic model is an economic model of the heart and empowerment.
Wow.
Yeah.
What powerful words, what wisdom.
Yes.
That's shared by Sheikh Raheem. This, again, I can't, stop saying this beautiful man,
Alhamdulillah.
both inside and out, which exudes so much positive energy. And I think that's what's so important. Doing good. I think that's the message. The strong message is that whatever project you do, go and make an impact. You don't need anybody, right? Just to sum up the lessons for me through this last hour that we shared is you don't need anybody. You do it with that faith in Allah, that Allah tawakkal.
Yeah, just one more thing.
Yes.
Always when you do, start, Allah will bring His team. That's the thing. You start, Allah will be, and that I witnessed it in my life, that whoever is around us, collectively, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the team of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And you can think big. You can, nothing is insurmountable. Wherever you are, whatever challenge you're going through, Allah can change your condition just like that. Through that faith in Allah, that Allah will change your condition. And do good. Whatever you're doing is making positive impact with minimal resources even. Right? You started off with minimal resources and you were helping those that were in need. Even your mom, that's where you learned it from.
Yeah.
So these are beautiful principles. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. Our producer, through one of the breaks, said, I know I learned something very powerful. Being reared in business school, which is all around research and as important as it is. But when you have that faith and you say, Allah wants me to do this here, I'm going to do it, and Allah is guiding me, then Allah opens the way for you. And yes, thereafter, you need to tie the camel, you need to do all the numbers and the research. It's all a very important aspect. But that faith, how many of us actually really live by that principle?
And lastly, Sheikh Ibrahim Niasse says, very, very interesting. He says that whatever it is that was started shall continue. And whatever it is that has not started will never continue. Yeah, shukran.
On those very, very wise words from Sheikh Raheem, it's an absolute pleasure, brother,
shukran,
to have you here.
My privilege.
And we wish you from the Inspirate business team all the success as we work toward building this beautiful continent of ours. Collectively, the world is wanting to come here and get their returns as well. But we as Africans need to forge our own destiny with this utmost faith that Allah will open the way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.